World War I, a conflict marked by its brutality and trench warfare, also presented challenges in the handling of prisoners of war. The treatment of captured soldiers varied widely among the belligerent nations, reflecting the complexities of war and the prevailing attitudes towards enemy combatants. This video explores the diverse approaches to handling prisoners in World War I, shedding light on the conditions, treatment, and evolving perspectives during this tumultuous period. International agreements and protocols. At the outset of World War I, the Hague Conventions of 1899 and 1907, which outlined the rules of war and the treatment of prisoners, were in effect. These conventions established guidelines for humane treatment, emphasizing the importance of providing adequate food, shelter, and medical care to captured soldiers. However, the realities of war often strained the adherence to these agreements, and the treatment of prisoners varied significantly. Captivity conditions in different theaters. 1. Western Front. In the trenches of the Western Front, where conditions were harsh and resources scarce, both Allied and Central powers struggled to provide for the basic needs of prisoners. Overcrowded camps, insufficient rations, and exposure to the elements characterized the captivity experience. 2. Eastern Front. The Eastern Front witnessed different dynamics, with the vast expanse and fluidity of the conflict impacting the treatment of prisoners. While some prisoners faced dire conditions, others found themselves in more lenient circumstances, especially in the early stages of the war. 3. Middle East and Africa. In theaters like the Middle East and Africa, where the nature of warfare was different, prisoners were often treated in accordance with local conditions and resources. The treatment could range from relatively humane conditions to severe hardships. Propaganda and perception. The treatment of prisoners during World War I became a subject of propaganda efforts by both sides. Nations sought to portray their enemies as either violating or upholding the principles of international law regarding the treatment of captives. Images and narratives depicting the humane treatment of prisoners or, conversely, emphasizing atrocities committed by the enemy were used to shape public opinion and boost morale. Notable incidents and controversies. 1. The Ruhleben internment camp, located near Berlin. The Ruhleben camp housed civilian internees, mainly from Allied countries. Despite challenging conditions, efforts by prisoners and international organizations led to relatively better conditions compared to some military POW camps. 2. The treatment of Indian POWs. Indian soldiers captured by the Central Powers faced discrimination and harsh treatment, reflecting racial biases prevalent during the era. 3. The Cossack bayonet charge. In one infamous incident, Russian POWs were reportedly forced into a bayonet charge against their own comrades by German captors, highlighting the brutal treatment some prisoners endured. Post-war repercussions and lessons. The handling of prisoners during World War I left a lasting impact on the collective memory of the conflict. After the war, various nations conducted inquiries into alleged mistreatment of prisoners, and individuals were held accountable for violations of international law. The experiences of captivity also influenced subsequent conventions and agreements aimed at refining the treatment of prisoners of war in future conflicts. The handling of prisoners in World War I reveals the complexities and challenges faced by nations grappling with the exigencies of war. From the brutal conditions of trench warfare to the propaganda efforts shaping public perception, the treatment of prisoners reflected the multifaceted nature of the conflict. While international agreements existed to guide the humane treatment of captives, the realities of war often strained adherence to these principles. The experiences of prisoners of war during World War I contribute to a nuanced understanding of the complexities of conflict and the human cost of war on both sides of the barbed wire.